the key issues in the broader ambit of the financing universe, at least certainly that we've seen as it relates to some of the smaller entrepreneurs perhaps starting out, is business support, and governance that can be a challenge as well over time. But hopefully through the program, we'll be able to unpack some of those. And that could be as simple as, and is not simple, preparation of management accounts. Way of the topics that inform the program, issues that very to facilitate conversation this morning as informed by yourselves. Emma Rumo. I am the Acting Divisional Executive for Strategy and Corporate Affairs at the IDC. We from our speakers today. So without further ado, I am hoping, are we able to just project at some point the program for today, just after welcoming thoughts both from Khanki, who needs no introduction in the main, as well as our sponsors from ABSA have grounded at least the objectives of today and what we can expect, and just the objectives and expectations, as it were. And then we'll just reflect on the program again and then get ourselves going. So without any further ado, if I may, with your indulgence, welcome Mr. Khanki Matabane, who will give us the opening remarks for this morning. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Program Director Piwe. I think the next event will be the IDC one. But thank you for agreeing to be the program director. Good morning, everyone. Thank you to ABSA for sponsoring this event and partnering with us. The reason we're having these sessions is we have realized that most of our members in business, especially in business, they are struggling with two main issues. There are other issues, obviously, but the two main ones is access to funding and access to the markets. So almost all our sessions are trying to deal with those two issues. So today's one is dealing with access to funding, because it's very, very important that if we want to deal decisively with the unemployment that we have in South Africa, we need to encourage people to go to business, but then those people have to be supported through funding, because if you want to expand, you need money, you need funding. You can't expand without access to money. But you also need access to the market, because you can have the money, but if there's no market, you may not be able to succeed. Hence, we are basically focusing on those. So what we do, we do invite people, speakers who are basically assisting us with those two. And we're creating this platform where we give you an opportunity to engage those people, and once you have agreements with those people, then you take it from there with them, and we don't feature anyway. And as you grow, you can then become a member of the BPC. So we're just basically creating the platform for people to have engagements. So we're hoping to see you in the next ones. We've got lineups, we've got the DPSA and other financial institutions that we're going to be partnering with. So just look out for our communication. But thank you very much for attending, and welcome.
Thank you very much, Khanki. If then you may allow me to invite Mr. Kalaletso Tlwaele, the Executive for Enterprise Development at ABSA. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Program Director. Just like to acknowledge Mr. Matabane, the CEO of the BBC, other members of the Black Business Council, representatives of the business community at large, industry leaders, entrepreneurs, whose cause we are actively managing aggressively as well through the various institutions where we belong. Fellow panelists and my colleagues at ABSA, distinguished guests and esteemed partners, as well as ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It is indeed an honor and a privilege to welcome you to this pivotal post-summit dialogue under the theme, Unlocking Growth, Building Access to Finance and Markets through Strategic Compliance. Firstly, once again, I'd like to really extend my and ABSA's heartfelt gratitude to the BBC and everyone involved in making this dialogue possible. On the 5th and 6th of June in 2025, earlier this year, we proudly partnered and sponsored the BBC to host the 2025 Black Business Summit, held under the theme, Socio-Economic Transformation and Inclusive Growth in the context of the GNU, G20 presidency, and geopolitical dynamics. And I would like at this stage to really thank the BBC for your strong voice when portfolios were being allocated to the GNU. There's one particular portfolio that was very strategic to be retained by somebody who would take the cause further, that we've been really managing for the past couple of decades. The summit served as a dynamic platform for high-level performance around engagement, addressing deep-rooted structural and systematic barriers to Black economic participation. One of the key outcomes was the urgent need to improve access to finance as well as markets. In response, we pledged to collaborate with the BBC to convene today's dialogue, an initiative aimed at equipping you with essential financial management skills. Throughout today's discussion, we will revisit and unpack some of the critical questions raised during the 2020 June Summit, with a particular focus on financial access and market inclusion. This gathering is more than an event. It is a statement of intent. It reflects our shared commitment to transforming South Africa's economic landscape by empowering the very heartbeat of the economy, which is our micro, small and medium enterprises, otherwise referred to as MSMEs. Without this broad-based participation, we would have failed because we would not be touching the real core of what drives the economy on a daily basis. We are proud to stand alongside the Black Business Council in this journey. Our sponsorship of today's dialogue is not just financial, it's philosophical. It is rooted in our belief that inclusive growth is not a luxury, but a necessity, particularly if you want social cohesion in this country. And in that regard, access to finance and markets should not be a privilege for the few, but a right for all who dare build, innovate, and contribute. MSMEs are the lifeblood of job creation, innovation, and community upliftment. I think we've all seen records and showcasing of innovation, even in the most deep rural of areas. Wherever there is a need for something, you'll definitely find innovation, and it is not only limited to a certain sector of the population. Whilst these MSMEs are truly the lifeblood of job creation innovation, as we indicated, yet they seem to face systemic economic barriers, from limited access to capital and rigid compliance frameworks to exclusion from mainstream markets. These are not just challenges, they are calls to action. At ABSA, we are committed to positioning ourselves as a purpose-led organization and an active force for good. We fully understand the challenges that entrepreneurs and MSMEs face, and we are dedicated to living up to our purpose of empowering Africa's tomorrow together, one story at a time. This means offering tailored solutions that address the unique needs of MSMEs, from startup capital to operational funding, as well as market access. We recognize that the growth and sustainability of MSMEs are crucial, not only to the success of individual businesses, but also to the broader community, economic development, and, of course, the development of the local communities that we represent. Let this be a space for bold ideas, honest conversations, and actionable outcomes. Let us challenge the status quo and reimagine a future where every entrepreneur, regardless of their background, has the tools, the access, and the support to succeed. Thank you for being part of this journey. Thank you for believing in the power of partnership. And thank you for helping us build a South Africa where growth is not just unlocked, but unleashed. Throughout the day, you will be hearing quite a lot of insights as to how to get yourself funding ready, how to ensure that your business affairs are actually ready for markets, for unlocking doors to markets, but also the resultant financing that comes with that. It is very important to understand that finance without access to finance without access to markets will not necessarily be sustainable, because at the end of the day, there might be the temptation to utilize the finance for consumption more than for productive purposes. It is not an easy journey. We have seen the geopolitical changes taking place. We're now starting to feel the impact of those tariffs. But as a united force for economic prosperity, we must not be faced by these challenges. We must face them head on, we must innovate, and we must make sure that we can actually overcome by getting access to new markets and also making use of the multitude of resources that we've got in this country, from human to mineral, agri, you name it. There is very few countries that are blessed with the abundance of resources like this country has. And all we need is to ensure that we are united in ensuring equality, ensuring that we are enabling economic participation for everyone. And through this, we will reach a point where we've got societal stability as well as prosperity for our communities. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Kgalaledzo, for those words. And certainly, I think, reminding us why it is that we are here. I am also told that our conversation is also live streamed on YouTube. So we will have participants also engaging in this morning's discussion. For those of you perhaps who don't know about the IDC, I'm always careful not to assume, as good order. We are the Industrial Development Corporation, the largest development finance institution in South Africa, with a mandate to fund both private sector activity in South Africa and in the rest of the continent. We are cognizant that South Africa's economy is also intricately linked to that of our regional neighbors as well as the rest of the continent. And as you would have seen with the changes in global dynamics, and certainly I think the advent of tariffs, we've had to very quickly reset and get in motion. Certainly, I think those linkages more aggressively with other markets for the benefit and sustainability of our own industries, as it were. And just again, to remind those who may not be familiar with us, we fund largely the productive sectors that drive South Africa's economy. I think similarly to our colleagues at ABSA, it's important that we deliver against employment as a core part of the outcomes that we pursue through our funding activities. Certainly, I think also promoting entrepreneurial development and growing, in part, very deliberately, the SME sector. And by extension, certainly, I think inclusion is a big outcome of ours. Transformational impact is also an important focus area for us, and certainly contributing towards sector diversity. We partner with ABSA in a lot of what we do, and what differentiates us perhaps from ABSA is our ability to take early stage risk in some of the transactions or opportunities that we consider, as is within the mandate of a development finance institution. But certainly in terms of the appreciation of the risks and opportunities as a family of financial, services, we certainly, I think, see similarly, but have a different appreciation of perhaps the risk that we are able to take, and certainly then partner on a more complementary basis as institutions that support the South African economy, as it were. Maybe also just to add to my colleague Kgalaledzo, one of the other key issues in the broader ambit of the financing universe, at least certainly that we've seen as it relates to some of the smaller entrepreneurs perhaps starting out, is business support, and governance that can be a challenge as well over time. But hopefully through the program, we'll be able to unpack some of those. And that could be as simple as, and is not simple, preparation of management accounts, for instance, that over time becomes important, especially as you approach and engage financial institutions. Considerations for governance, especially as you grow in scale, and moving from a one-man, one-woman show or two-man, two-woman show, and you grow, you do need and will need to consider reorganizing differently, amongst obviously other considerations as far as the compliance universe is concerned. So those are just amongst, other topics perhaps that we'll get to cover today. So without further ado, I would then do you have the program now? You don't? Oh, okay. So maybe then let me just high level just talk to it. I'm told the bathrooms are to my right, your left, through reception. Coffee, I believe, will be served that end. The request is that we reserve our questions for the end once we've had various speakers then address the different the different topics rather. So we have 5 topics that I believe, as I said at the very onset, have been informed by what you are interested in. So the discussion is fit for purpose. So we will be covering identifying structural and institutional obstacles that face the MSME sector, as well as securing funding. And then we will also engage around a range of compliance-related topics from CIPC, KYC, tax, hopefully to a certain extent, and governance. That's part of what's on offer, as well as examining how credit assessment practices and collateral demands impact financing for certainly, I think, the colleagues in the room today, amongst others. So that's what's on offer. So to then segue us to that, I would like to invite, we'll start with Diro, if you, okay, it's the other way around, ne? Oh, okay, no, that's fine. So we are starting with 5, that's what I have. Let me just yeah, okay. If you can just come up, ne? I just there's a bit of a shift in on our agenda. So Dimakatso Mpafudi, a regional credit manager, is not here. But sorry, my apologies. Yeah, there's just been the last minute changes. So we're going to start with understanding the complexities of financial regulations. So if you can please allow me to introduce Mr. Ofense Shakung, who is the director of CIPC, to come and address that topic, and then we'll move back to what was item 5. Thanks.
Yeah. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. There we go. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Can you please give yourself a round of applause? No, that is just to make sure we are all awake. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. As they said, I am Ofense Shakung. I happen to come from an organization called the CIPC. Maybe just by a show of hands, who of you know of the CIPC? As you said, we must not assume. Who of you have used CIPC services? Who of you have used CIPC online services? Okay, and who of you hate us? No, the ones that can hate us, there's a big enough parking, we can go outside and fight. No problem. But I'm hoping that after this conversation, not only hopefully that I clarify why you hate us, but maybe after that you can maybe come see me and we can sort out whatever issue that you might have with us. So the reason why I want to check who knows of CIPC, so that I don't waste time on the normal stuff of explaining who the CIPC is. But as a nutshell, the CIPC is an organization that's responsible for the registration and regulation of companies, close corporations, cooperatives, as well as intellectual property in the country. Meaning for you to have any of those that I've mentioned, you would have had to have an experience with us. All right. Now, besides that, our functions, as I said, I don't want to bore you a lot with that because I think what is of interest to me is how do we make your life simple as a business owner? And I think that's where I would like to spend most of my time. But those are just some of the services. And as you would see, education and awareness is one of them. But the other part that you might not like us of is to regulate. Now, we all fear SARS, right? Or you don't, I do. We all fear SARS. But the nice thing about that is that they are delivering on their mandate, which is to regulate and collect tax. So we also have a duty to regulate and somewhat collect some monies from you as well. Now, as a matter of principle, where I would like to start the conversation is looking at how CIPC has made life simple for business owners. Meaning, if you're an SMME and upwards, maybe till just underneath corporate, where we're speaking about large corporations, we have tried very much to make life simple, not only in how you experience us as an organization, but rather also how you transact with us as an organization. Meaning a lot of our services are available online, and I'll cover a few of them, and also a lot of them, how they are relevant in you being able to access finance as one of the true elements as to why we're having this conversation today. But the first place I would like to start, have you ever registered a company using CIPC's BIS portal? I only have 1 yes. I only have 2 yeses. Are you guys business owners? No, Khanki, I think, just to make sure, I mean, are you guys business owners? Okay. So you might have registered through other platforms we have. But with BIS portal, how we've made it simple for you, we're saying you can register a company on BIS portal, paperless. We use ID verification with Home Affairs. The company gets registered. We also send that information to SARS to create a profile for your business. If you have employees, you can also register with the UIF and Compensation Fund. You would also be able to obtain a BE certificate for free. And you'd also be able to facilitate the opening of a bank account, all with one application. Now, for all of you who think I'm lying, please raise your hands. And I'm not intimidating, I was just asking. So what we're hoping for when you experience this, we're only saying there 24 hours because just like every organization, we get audited. But this happens way quicker than 24 hours. Within less than an hour, all of these services, once you've paid for, only 175 rand to register a company. Now, because you are business owners, you must also know that these services are also available independently for companies that are already existing. Meaning that should you be in the comfort of your own home and you would like to open a business bank account, you don't have to go to the bank. Just come to BIS portal, log on, select open bank account, select the bank you want, and the bank will then make contact with you. That's how we are trying to also make life simple for you. If you want a BE certificate, don't go and pay someone 1.5 to get a BE certificate. There's one here for free, where we have collaborated with the BE Commission to be able to issue you with a free BE certificate. If the company has grown and you've got employees, you don't have to go to UIF and Q or labor and Q. You can easily just come here and say you want to register with UIF and Compensation Fund, and you would be able to do that electronically on this site. So for us, this is the day-to-day. This is what keeps the lights on, you know? This is what we believe you should be spending most times on when you are wanting to transact with us. But there's more services there, and a few of them I'll speak of a bit later in my slides. But one of them, they being Proudly South African, which is a partner of ours, where you can also facilitate registering with them. And in the very near future, we hope that some of the tax services you'll be able to access also on BIS portal. Now, let's do away with the legalities, and we jump to, now, the company now exists, and the question is, why do we comply? I think compliance for businesses for the longest of time has become a very hard conversation to have. But if you are in business, it's an important conversation to have. Because you cannot expect to access finance if your company's compliances are not up to date. You can't want any organization to take you seriously if your compliances are not up to date. When we speak of due diligence, when you go to any funding agency, be it private or public, they do have requirements to meet, and one of those requirements is what your compliances look like as an organization. And it only goes without saying how important due diligence and compliance is. Now, question is, from a CIPC's point of view, what are the compliances are we speaking about, and also how have we made it simple for you to comply with? Now, on this page, I would say are the three most important that you need to make certain that as a company you have complied with. For example, annual returns. Every company on a year-to-year basis is required to submit annual returns. Now you ask yourself, has your company submitted or not? And when we say every company, you hear, I didn't say every company that did business. Every company, as long as you exist as a company, you are required to submit an annual return, whether you're traded or not. Actually, to even make it simple for you, when you go into the annual return, we have put a 0 there already for you. So that if you didn't trade, there's a 0 to show that we consider you. Then if there is turnover, obviously you will change it to whatever turnover. Should it is that it be that you don't submit your annual returns, the company will get deregistered. If you've got 2 years or more outstanding of annual returns, we do deregister your company. You might remember early this year, we went as far as deregistering almost 800,000 companies who did not comply with submitting their annual return. So it's a very important compliance. Now, with that same compliance, for big companies or big corporations, they would submit what we call annual financial statements, and that we do in a interesting version called XBRL, which is Extendable Business Reporting Language, where we take your financials and we put them in a certain language for us to be able to read whatever data we would like to read from your financials. But as an SMME, you would submit an FAS, a Financial Accountability Supplement. Now, I know it says financial, but in the completion itself, there's no way you are putting numbers, by the way. It's just certain information we need from you for financial compliance, and because you're an SMME, there's no financial question we are asking you in you submitting that FAS. The other big phenomena, and I think a lot of people now are catching a hang of it, is what we call beneficial ownership. Who of you, by a show of hands, have submitted their beneficial ownership? Did you find it difficult? I think the takeaway today, it's annoying. No. We take that. Firstly, we must remember, why are we submitting beneficial ownership? Maybe before I explain how we've made it simpler, remember South Africa was downgraded as an investment destination. Do you guys know? Do you know why we were downgraded? Because South Africa is being used as an avenue or country for money laundering, illicit financing, kidnapping, and they are using official businesses, official registered companies to do so. Now, when we go back and then try prosecute, we end up not knowing who are the actual warm bodies that are benefiting behind these companies. Who are the shareholders? Who are the people who've got interest in these businesses? Who are people who've got control in these businesses? And primarily, that's the reason why we are collecting beneficial ownership information. Do you think if we collected beneficial ownership information, let's say 10 years ago, some of these corruption scandals we have, we would be sitting with today? Because we would know company X is linked to person Y. So if company X and Y benefit together, we obviously then, we connect the dots, isn't it? We then know who was benefiting from what. But because that information was not available before, we were not able to obviously connect those matrices. But besides it being annoying, like the other beautiful lady has said, we've made it simpler for you. You would know currently that you had submitted your security register, beneficial interest register, and a mandate, right? Would you believe now when I say that you can submit beneficial ownership without paper? Right now, you can submit beneficial ownership end to end without submitting any paper or uploading any paper or document. What we've said is that because the bigger majority of companies registered in South Africa happen to be owner-managed businesses, meaning mostly the director is also the shareholder. And we'd like to also clarify, as a director, doesn't necessarily mean you're an owner, right? We agree, right? As a director, you're an office bearer. You're just running the organization. But as a shareholder, that's where you become an owner. But we know that in most SMMEs, the person being the director is also the owner. So now your next beneficial ownership application for that specific type of company, it's a straight-through process. You will be able to file without sending us any of those documents. Those documents become relevant when you've got other decision makers in your business that are not appearing on your records. If you have other investors in your business who are not appearing on our records, then you would still have to disclose to us via a security register and a beneficial ownership interest register. Now, just to move along through some of the compliances, director amendments, obviously self-explanatory. When you appoint, resign directors, it's also a straight-through process on our online services, meaning that you don't have to send anything through to us. And just to be spicy, I will say which of these services are free, because we know that you guys are paying for everything. I'll say that again. I'll say which services are free, because we know SMMEs love paying money they don't have. You love paying for everything. So whatever I'm going to be reading through, if it's a free service, I'm going to say free. Then whoever you had an agreement with to give 1,000 rand to do a director amendment, you'll have your own conversation. I'm telling you from a regulator, Hore, it's free. Can we agree on that? And we won't fight again. Director amendments is an online process. If you have more than 15 directors, you have to submit a manual form, because the system won't be able to process that and send it to us. It's a free process, whichever way you do. It's a free process. MOI amendments, you are amending provisions of your MOI or the name. There's a submission fee there of 250 rand that's payable for that application, 250. Financial year end change is an online submission where you're changing your financial year end. This is very, very relevant and important to SARS as to when your financial year end is. It's a free application. Direct address changes, obvious, self-explanatory. You're moving from point A to point B. Your business must show the correct and relevant address. It's a free service. Name change also goes with your MOI amendment, which is the 250 payable. And also, one phenomena that a lot of companies that do not know of is submitting for business rescue. We hope a lot of companies should not end there. But business rescue is companies that are financially constrained. This is just another avenue before going into liquidation, where there is a possibility and a plan to try and save the company instead of pushing it into liquidation. Now, one other free service that we offer, is an online training platform for directors. Maybe by a show of hands, who of you have taken part in this online training platform? Just one guy. And I must say, good sir, you're the only guy consistently who's put his hand up for all my questions. And this time you're the only one who's put your hand up. This is an online training platform that we've offered for directors. Directors go into agreements where you're asked about third-party liability. Do you know what that means? When they say director fiduciary duties, do we understand? When you go to IDC and they say, we will attach, I think it was a matter of time. When they say we will attach your personal stuff, when you just saw the 50 million there, you just quick to sign. Then when they say, but we told you that if you don't do this, this is what we are going to do, we become surprised. Currently, we've got offering these 7 modules to directors. We will be expanding on them. Compliance possibly being the 8th, beneficial ownership most probably being the 9th. But currently, these 7 are currently available for free as an online training platform. We're in negotiation with some of the government funding agencies. If we get our way, the possession of this certificate should become one of the compliance requirements to apply for any sort of grant or funding. Because if you've gone through this, there is some level of understanding that you do understand some of the legal terms you're getting yourself tied up to when you sign these agreements, either with private or public lenders. So we will appeal to you to take advantage of that. Maybe towards the end now, one other aspect of the CIPC's work that we believe SMMEs are not taking advantage of, maybe by a show of hands, because all of you are business owners, how many of you have got registered trademarks where your company name or your logo is protected with a trademark? It's only 3. Now, 4. Now, that's concerning, because it means that you are not taking advantage of brand positioning as organizations and the protection of that specific image. So maybe just to run through, these are the types of intellectual properties that you can register. Patent, trademarks, copyright, and designs. Patent, I believe that's the one that we use a lot of as people and we're not even aware. Because the creation of mind or an invention, a lot of it falls under patents. For example, you'll hear on an advert for these ladies' brands, they'll say it's a patented formula. Basically meaning that that chemical formula that created the lotion that you are putting on is a protected patent, meaning no one else can do exactly that you've done to create that product. Some of us create products from scratch. Do we register them as patents? I don't think we do. Then later when another bigger brand who's got bigger coffers imitates your brand, then we are the first to cry foul. And when government tries and helps and they say, okay, show us your registration that you've protected this thing, it's non-existent. Then we're starting a fight not on 0, but on -10 because there's nothing to prove that you've protected this thing. The next biggest one that we believe you need to be taking advantage of is trademarks. Brand names, logos, slogans. Those are simple things that position. ABSA's one is what? No, it's not today, tomorrow together. It says there, your story matters. So all of these things is what we identify with when it comes to brands. And these things are protected and registered to avoid any other person taking advantage of it. Now, one will ask, but now how do I register this thing? Do I need a lawyer? It's going to cost me 500,000 rand to do. And you know, one funny thing with SMMEs, they are the first to complain, but they've never tried. Eh? They'll tell you it will cost you 500,000. And I'm going to say, show me, bruh. Take me there. I want to see. Because as we sit currently, we've went and gave you a platform to register intellectual property online. A lot of intermediaries don't like us for that, but our service is to service the public. You can register a trademark on this platform by uploading your logo or slogan. To register a trademark is only 590 rand. If you are paying anything more than that, you will do the math, Akira. Whatever minus 590 equals X. And X is the amount of money I gave this person to use only 1 gig of their data. This is IP Online. Guys, please take advantage of this. Should you want to also do what we call intellectual property search, there's a free search functionality there. That one day we all wake up with great ideas. Have you ever woken up in the morning and you're like, yeah, there's no idea like this in this world. Come here. Your dreams will be shattered. But besides that, it will also give you an opportunity to see where also you are able to explore spaces based on the inventions that you come from. That's just the one other last thing that I would like to bother you with today is our continuous mantra as an organization is to make life simple for the business owner. We do also regulate big business, and we've got means and ways how we do that for them. But for SMMEs, we operate from a view of sitting in your chair, and we work backwards to us as a regulator. And one of that is, who of you know of an organization called the Information Regulator? Oh, 2, 3 hands. But you guys are the first one to say, yeah, Popia says this, you can't take a photo of me. But you don't know of the Information Regulator. All right, so in your organization or company, if in your course of business, you happen to have to collect information of people, if in the course of your business, you are forced to collect data, information of people, make sure that you register with the Information Regulator. Because they've got not only their own requirements, but they also have certain provisions you have to meet as a person collecting that data, so that no one comes to you and say, yeah, why do you have my details? Popia says, but you're like, but no, I comply. They've given me approval that I can do that type of work. But because we think for you, how do we make it simple? Go to BizPortal. You can register with the Information Regulator from BizPortal. And you are also able to file your annual compliances, your annual reports that you file with the information regulator on a year-to-year basis, also using this portal. Now, there's a lot more that we do, but I think for now, I've wowed you too much. So I think for now, I'll stop it here. But I will be available as a public servant after this if you need any consultation regarding any of our services. And because churches grow every day in this world, if I was a pastor, at this point I would say, let the church say amen.
You would agree, I certainly think that you handled that masterfully, if I can say so myself, Ofenze. You know, I always, my heart breaks whenever one engages with a potential entrepreneur looking for funding and they've spent 5,000, 30,000, or 100,000 in certain instances, having paid someone for a business plan. And, you know, to Ofenze's point, it's not always necessary. Yes, I agree, depending on complexity of potential transaction and nature of the transaction, if it's a merger and acquisition, or you looking to acquire an asset and you may need expert advice on the valuation, then maybe, you know, that may be necessary. But really, just at the onset of applying your mind to an opportunity that is of interest to you, that really requires you to have at least some idea around the marketing, financial, certain instances, technical, management, that's on you to at least have spent time around those issues. And when you approach a potential lender, you are meeting them at your story, as Absa says, you know, your story matters. And it is those on the other side with market insight, because they lend to many aspiring entrepreneurs, so there's a lot of lessons learned that they've gleaned over the years. So they're able to meet you at a, we hear you, we see you, however, this is what we are seeing. Have you considered X, Y, Z? And maybe go and deep dive on this area or this particular area. We are able to assist you in this way. But you don't need to pay 5,000, 30,000, 100,000 for that conversation. So I can speak with some measure of confidence and authority that to engage us, you don't need to have spent money or paid any money you don't have to someone, where we exist, and part of our value proposition is certainly to hold your hand in developing the idea that you sit with. So that's just something that I just wanted to reiterate, and I think you couldn't have said it better. And if it is true, I assume many of you are shy, but if by what, you know, as he was asking, raise your hands if you have interacted with X platform or you're aware of this, I think as a good practice and diligence, respectfully, it's important to engage with these platforms. And so when you speak, you can say, I've interacted with your platform. This is what doesn't work with it, or this is what's frustrating. So when I'm speaking and I'm saying, this is what we do and this is how we do it, and if there's incoherence in, you know, your experience of that, you can then hold us to account. But there's a lot that people end up paying for that they really do not need to pay for. So without further ado, if I can then invite my colleague, Diro Machiu, who will then take us through some of the challenges, the opportunities in respect of accessing funding for this ecosystem. Thank you.
You try anything, what you want, what you want to do for love. You try anything, but you won't give up.
Good morning, everyone. You didn't have coffee this morning. I didn't see people having coffee. There's coffee on the other side. I think the energy will start shortly while they fix. Can I put it?
There's music in the air. It makes a circle.
My name is Tiro Machiu, as has just been shared, from Yarena Group. I've been trusted with speaking briefly on the topic identifying structural and institutional obstacles MSME face in securing funding. And I think just in that topic, there's challenges. We've moved from SMMEs to MSMEs. Why? The wording was just fine, but it makes it difficult to now start to memorize what an MSME is, and moving from SMME. I've seen so many people, even people that came up with the word, mess it up when they are presenting. So there's a lot of obstacles in small business that can be avoided. And when it comes to funding, and I think maybe before I start, just to give a shout out to the IDC. So a couple of weeks back, we're doing a project for ABSA in the Vembe district up in Thohoyandou. And one of the places that we stayed at is a Premier Hotel, Thohoyandou, which was funded by the IDC. I think about 80% of the funding of the 194 million, I think IDC paid about 140 million for that. So they do assist where there are genuine, valid projects. And so just to add to what you just shared in terms of the. But the issue then becomes, and I think maybe by way of background, our company is an enterprise development consultancy. So we work with SMMEs. So we understand the issues on the ground. And we also work with corporates. So we also understand what corporates require in order to be able to assist you, whether it's corporate or government assistance that you may require. And CIPC is where it starts. I think it was quite opportune that I came after you instead of before you, because that's where it all starts. You take your ID number and you say to South African CIPC, "Nah, I'm registering my name to this company," and you create that contract with CIPC. And through that, they then enable you to trade. You are then able to go and open a bank account with ABSA. You are then, in fact, automatically, they give you a SARS income tax number immediately as you register. So that's where everything starts at CIPC. And some of the things that Offense spoke about with regards to compliance from a CIPC point of view are some of the easiest things, but still entrepreneurs are failing to access the funding because beneficial ownership is not in order. Your annual returns are not in order. I can tell you from experience of working with SMMEs, it's small things like that sometimes it's not the fault of the corporates, but us not doing the work. And Offense mentioned an important thing of we end up having to pay money that we don't have for things that we can access for free, right? And that's a huge part of the South African psyche, South African, there's always a middleman. But you can avoid all of that if you just take the time to go read what is required at CIPC. Know that those are annual returns. That means you have to do them every year, not once every 6 years. I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. I think last year in December, there was about 800,000 small businesses that were deregistered. And some of those businesses were already in existing contracts or about to be awarded contracts. And now you are then asked to submit your compliance documents. And that's a standard procedure, guys. If you decide you're going to be in business, just ensure that you comply. It's no use trying to fight the system or trying to reason and trying to bring excuses. Just comply, because nobody is going to give you their money if you do not comply. Not the bank, not government, maybe your friends and family, but certainly not the banks, not government. So we must make it a point as SMMEs or MSMEs to comply. It's as simple as that. Find out if you are in a certain industry and you need, let's say it's construction, and you need NHRBC and all other compliance, just go and comply. And a lot of the institutions have made these things easy. I mean, they run road shows throughout the country, even in far-flung areas where they do awareness campaigns. Even the likes of ABSA, run these types of things throughout the country, where they bring in the likes of SARS, CIPC, etc., to ensure that you get the relevant information to make sure that you can then thrive. Because remember, how does a bank make money, for instance? A bank makes money from loaning you money. Not necessarily, yes, they make from transactional fees, etc., but the core business of a bank is to loan you money. Then they make money from that. So if you are not compliant and they are unable to loan you, it's not a good business for them. It's in their best interest to make sure that you comply, right? So government, similarly, yes, with government, their motive might not necessarily be to make money on the money that they loan out, because they are a development agency in the country. But still, it's our money, it's you and mine's money, so they're not going to loan you money if you do not comply. Whether it's NYDA, whether it's IDC, whether it's SIDFA, former SIFA, etc. Any government institution needs to make sure that the money that they give to anyone, there is compliance in place. Because we as the citizens will hold government accountable. Auditor General, etc., will hold the government accountable for that money, because it belongs to all of us. So we want to make sure as the citizens to say, when you loan money to someone, they must be compliant. And we know stories and we've heard stories, but it's in our best interest as SMMEs to ensure that we comply. Are we still together? Are we going to comply? Who here has checked their beneficial ownership? Because I know, I speak quite a lot with Ufense, they will be doing another run towards the end of the year, where they will be deregistering companies because you have not filed your beneficial ownership. So you will have worked so hard to secure a contract or to secure an RFP, whatever it may be. And then you are going to be asked for your compliance documents. And at that stage, all that hard work, we know as small businesses, cultivating those relationships, it takes time. Putting together the proposals, having done all of that work, and only to be tripped up because your company has been deregistered. You haven't checked, you just assumed, and you've got something of value to offer at that moment. But unfortunately, no one can do business with you if your company is deregistered, whether it's for annual returns or tax compliance, whatever it may be. They are not allowed to do business with you. They will simply tell you, sorry, whatever we had discussed, we can't go here any further. and they might find someone else. You might not even have the opportunity to go and correct that. Because at that time, you've also lost confidence in the eyes of the people that you're trying to work with. Because they then look at you and say, this one is not serious. Simple thing like annual returns or beneficial ownership, yet you want us to give you 5 million. Huh? Because that's the kind of money that I'm hoping here in the room we are going out there and seeking. The money is there. In our development programs, I always talk about, in South Africa, there is money for SMMEs. There is a lot of money in SMMEs. Government alone has programs and pledges and up to 78 billion rands worth of money in different structures, in different SOEs for SMMEs per year, not per year. Government has been giving money from the days of Umsobombu up to now. They are still trying to develop SMMEs, right? But we are failing ourselves by the lack of compliance. Yes, there are obstacles in terms of what the requirements are. I mean, one recent one on another program that we're running is entrepreneurs in rural areas who are on permission to occupy land. You know, you live in a chieftaincy, you've been given land by your chief to run your agricultural program, but then it becomes difficult for the banks to recognize that piece of land as collateral. Or even our own government sometimes doesn't recognize. If you go to CITFA or to IDC, they don't recognize that kind of agreement that you have, that permission to occupy from your chief in your village. So those are some of the things that we need to correct in the system. Because yes, we are now saying SMMEs stay in the rural, let's develop our rural areas, let's develop our townships, but we are not empowering those entrepreneurs by having these obstacles in place that ensure that then they don't grow. So there are definitely obstacles in place. Issues like credit records, right? As SMMEs, you will know we face difficulties when it comes to payments. We do work with government, even with certain corporates. You'll do work and be running after the institution for months to get paid. Now, the bank does not see all of that. All they see is that when they tried to debit your account, there was no money in your account. And you then get a bad mark against your name to say, or your company to say, you're not paying well. So there are structural things like that that impede our growth. You have not done anything wrong from your side. You've delivered the work for government or for a corporate, and now you are waiting for the payment, and the payment doesn't come through. There are stats in terms of the turnaround times with the different SOEs and departments in terms of how quickly they pay SMMEs. And those are real issues that have been spoken about time and time and time again. When we have provincial speeches, they speak about how they're going to work on ensuring that SMMEs are paid, you are prioritized. But those are the obstacles that impede our growth. And that's the reality, and those are some of the things that, even as BBC, we should also be challenging. I know we do, but it's an ongoing conversation that really is hampering the growth of small businesses in South Africa. Are we still together? How are we going to solve these problems, though? Firstly, we have to comply. I think for me, as a practitioner in this space, I always emphasize to the SMMEs that you just have to comply. We're not
Which one should I use for mom?
the inconsistencies, the obstacles. But if you are not compliant at all, then you can't even get in the ring. Nobody can even assist you. I doubt even the BBC would be able to assist you because the institution would simply say, he doesn't have this, she doesn't have this, doesn't have that. What do you want us to do? Must we break the bank's rules? Must we break the IDC rules to suit this individual? And that's not a situation that we want to find ourselves in. So the key is that we must just simply comply. There is a lot of money. I think the ABSA colleagues will also speak to some of the programs that they have in terms of funding. There is a lot of money in the system. If anything, when you leave today, we're talking about obstacles. Remember that there's money in the system for SMMEs and ensure that you comply, right? Take it upon yourself to comply. Make sure that you comply. You know, one of the things that we can do is learn the basics of business finance. We know you are a passionate hairdresser, you are a passionate app developer, etc. But there are certain things as a business owner that you need to understand for yourself so that you don't end up paying people 2,000 and 4,000 rand for things that you can do yourself. But also, you're then not in control of the process. And this is your business, this is your legacy. You decide you are going to register this business to build something for yourself, for your family, but now you are letting yourself down, you are letting your family down by not complying, right? So let us just comply. That's the first part, just comply. I mean, some of the obstacles that we face, I mean, we can, there's gender parity issues, sectoral imbalances. We know in our country, and I think it's one of the countries that I think does a lot in terms of women empowerment. There's so many programs. Around women empowerment, right? And therefore, why are we not taking advantage of those opportunities, right? Then we've got, you know, the sectoral imbalances. You know, there's certain sectors where there's a high demand or even the money that is required to start or to build a business in those sectors is quite high. And from the institution side, they don't necessarily want to play in those fields. I'll take SIDFA as an example. When it comes to primary agriculture, right? Over the last couple of years, few years, we've had big talk about agro-processing. Every second program that you come across speaks about people being in the agro-processing. But for you to agro-process, there has to be primary agriculture, right? And there isn't a lot of funding in primary agriculture. So there's a misalignment in terms of industries and how we also fund from an institutional point of view, from a government point of view. And these are some of the things that we need to address so that there isn't that misalignment. South Africa, we're trying to industrialize as much as we can, but then you've got new sectors, you know, ICT, you know, people that are developing, and you'll find that a lot of institutions will not fund you for those new offshoots, new technology stuff, because they simply don't understand it. You come and you sit in front of someone who has the key to the money, but they don't understand the industries in which we are playing in. So that becomes an obstacle. It's an institutional obstacle, because how is the person going to unlock economic activity if they don't necessarily understand the different industries that are now growing? We've got AI, which is a big player now in terms of where the economies are going. So we also then need to ensure in our institutions that we develop the people that hold the key to entrepreneurial activities and to economic development in our country. Because I've seen it where an SMME will come through to us, they present an idea, we like the idea, and when they go and present it to a DFI, the people on the other side simply don't even want to entertain because they simply don't understand what this person is talking about. So that's another kind of obstacle that we face. Another big one in closing is collaboration. We've seen it working in this space where all different corporates are working in silos, right? And when you work in silos with limited budgets, the impact is not what it should be, right? Where if we embrace, as corporates, collaboration, where ABSA will bring in this much, another institution will bring in this much, another institution will bring in this much, and we collaborate in funding SMMEs, in running programs. I think that's another key thing that maybe I'll leave it even with the ABSA colleague and the BBC colleagues to have a look at not just wanting to do things in silos or for our own corporate or brand benefit, because we can unlock so much value when we collaborate, not just as small businesses, but even at an institutional level. The collaboration that we need to see will be something that will unlock opportunities going forward. Thank you.
Please stay there, don't go. Sure. Oh, goodness. Thanks. Sure, thanks, Tito. Thank you very much, Diro, for those reflections. Obviously, our next speaker is Dace Delega. He is the Senior Enterprise Manager from ABSA, and he will be taking us through the credit assessment process, collateral demands, maybe I don't like the word demands, or collateral requirements or considerations that impact the MSME financing. And maybe just to, while he makes his way, we don't fund as a DFI necessarily against collateral, but what I prefer to refer to as rather viability. So it's important that we spend a considerable amount of time really looking at the marketing, technical and financial aspects of the business proposition that is presented to us. Because we don't necessarily go after your home when things go south, but certainly, I mean, that's notwithstanding that we don't take security. I mean, that's a big one, we do take security, but it's part of perhaps our play as a development finance institution, hence the wiggle room that we have in terms of the risk that we take. Obviously, I think as you know, Dira alluded to earlier, we are self-funding, so we do not receive funding from the state, have not done so. We turn 85 in 2 months' time, so have not done so since 1940. So preservation of our financial sustainability is very important. So that does inform also what we require from potential entrepreneurs that do approach us. And as you would know, anyone who doesn't have a skin in the game, in any contextual dynamic, they don't have nothing to lose. But when you've put in all there is you can, you've got a vested interest in how that proposition turns out. But if you really there's an opportunity that's given to you for free, irrespective of what happens to it, you don't really care. So I think that's the premise, so that's the principle of at least some form of commitment. We are mindful, obviously, of our own historical constraints and how the majority of our people wouldn't necessarily have 10 million, 5 million, 30 million, you know, from their pockets to put in. So we do take that into consideration, hence, obviously, consideration in as far as how we structure the transaction and what instruments, you know, we can use to assist with that structure, as it were, to enable meaningful participation and certainly, I think, involvement of our people in the transactions. So in terms of how we need to ensure we stay sustainable, or how rather we are funded, it's obviously through internal profits, divestments from mature investments, and we borrow from both domestic and international, markets. So it's very important that we take a considered approach in the kind of propositions that we ultimately bank. And therefore, the partnership with yourself is important in doing so that we're able to remain financially sustainable and at the same time, and more importantly, deliver against our development dividends, which differ somewhat from a pure commercial bank outfit. So we have to ensure sectoral diversity. We've got to ensure we deliver against our transformational outcomes, which is inclusion, women, youth, black industrialists, certainly support deindustrialization efforts, you know, of this economy as a DFI, and proactively identify new opportunities. As I always say, you know, and people don't know, we started renewables as far back as in 2012, when that wasn't even there. And no commercial bank would take risk on that. So we, in essence, created an industry that did not exist in South Africa. And over time, obviously now, we're not relevant. We certainly continue to support then the participation of black entrants in that space, but we fulfilled our role as a development finance institution in taking market risk and creating a new industry that did not exist in the form that it exists in today. And that's our play in the South African economy. So maybe then, on that note, and I'll certainly, I think, support during the Q&A around credit assessment, key consideration and requirements, as well as considerations, at least for some form of contribution that displays or at least shows commitment on your part that any lender may want to see, notwithstanding our full understanding and appreciation of the limitations that our people have. Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. It's really an honor to be here. Program Director, thank you. I don't think it's necessary for me to talk about ABSA. We all know what is ABSA. So I'm gonna go through straight to the topic of today. My name is Stace Tekela from ABSA Enterprise Development Department. I've been mandated to talk about credit assessment processes and also the impact of collateral requirements. So I'm going to be talking about the basic principles of credit assessment, the method used to do credit assessment, and then lastly we'll talk about the impact of collateral requirements. So in terms of the basic principles of lending, these are the things that the bank or a lender will look when they assess you. Firstly, they will look at your character. When we talk about character, this is your reputation. I actually like this topic because of, I actually have a friend who's running a business. He borrowed 500 rands from me, and he didn't pay me. Yeah. So now, 3 months later, he approached a bank because of his running a business. He approached a bank, he applied for a loan, his loan was declined. And then he came to me complaining, he said, yeah, hey, you know you guys working for banks, now my loan has been declined, blah, 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 blah. And then I said to him, Chief, how do you expect a bank to give you a facility of 2 million when you can't pay me back my 500? I said to him, as long as you're not going to pay me, there's no bank that is going to fund you because of that is the reputation that you are creating. So when we say reputation, a lender looks at your past credit history to check, have you been a good payer when you are taking debts? I know most people like saying, but the business is the one that is taking the loan, not me. So remember, most of the decisions, especially critical decisions of the business, you are the one who are making those decisions. If in your personal life you are making bad decisions, that's also going to have an impact on the decisions that you are making for the business. So if you want to get access to finance and you want to have a good reputation, if you have debts, you need to pay your debts on time. If you are failing to pay your debts, don't run away. Approach your lender, make arrangements with them. Because we understand sometimes situations can change. So don't run away. Please engage your bank, make those arrangements. Number 2, condition. When we talk about condition, we look at the economic environment that affect your business. Let's say, for an example, you want to start a farm out in Northwest during a drought. It might not be advisable to start a business during that time, or it might not be as advisable to go and look for a business during that time because of obviously the drought is negatively going to impact your business and it is going to be difficult for you to repay back the loan. So a lender looks at a number of factors that can affect your business. For an example, if you are in a manufacturing space, you're going to be using a lot of electricity. If there's load shedding, during load shedding, if you can't tell the bank how are you going to have alternative source of energy, the bank is going to have a problem because of obviously during that load shedding time, you're going to lose on productivity, which is going to lead you in terms of not making enough revenue for your business, which can simply means you might not be able to repay back the loan. So normally when you approach a bank, look at any economic conditions that negatively impact your banks and try to address them or see how can they be mitigated before you approach the bank. Number 3, we look at collateral. So later on, we're going to be unpacking this topic deeper. But when we talk about collateral are assets or guarantees provided by the borrower that can be claimed by the lender if the loan is not repaid. Meaning, for a lender to lend you money, you need to give them tangible security, or you pledge it to them so that in the event that you can't pay, they are able to claim that asset and then they sell it and then they can settle off your loan. And then number 4, we look at capacity. Capacity speaks to whether you've got the resources, you've got the equipment, you've got the right people to deliver in order for the business to generate income. We also check at your experience, we also check at your skills, whether you are able to deliver in order for you to repay back the loan. So when the lender gives you money, let's say for an example, you are in an environment that is very technical. If you want to start that type of a business, the lender is going to check whether you've got the experience or the expertise in that field of practice. Obviously, if you don't have the right skills, it's going to be difficult for a lender to rely on you to execute that particular work. Lastly, we look at capital. I think Madam Speaker spoke briefly about capital. Capital refers to your own skin in the game, your own investment in the game. So we have seen a lot of entrepreneurs taking, for an example, let me make an example. We have seen a lot of entrepreneurs, especially in the startup phase, because of most of them, they want to be rich too quickly. You start a business, your business is generating, for an example, year one, you are generating 10 million, but you are taking 4 million rands as your own salary. And then a few months later, you come to the bank looking for money to pay for your salaries. So I think it's also important to understand some of the financial decisions that you are making in your business. How do they negatively impact your balance sheet? How will a lender view them? Let me make an example. Most people like buying assets for the business because they believe if you buy an asset, it will strengthen your balance sheet. But unfortunately, it depends what type of an asset are you buying using a business. Let me make an example. If you are buying an expensive car using a business, that is good because of obviously for you as an entrepreneur, you need to move around, you need to visit your clients using a vehicle. But now, if you're going to be buying an expensive car using the business, especially in income, especially in an asset that is not generating income, it has a negative impact on your financial statements. In accounting terms, they call it a lazy asset because of, remember, it's just an asset that you are having, that you are using the revenues from the business to pay it, whereas that particular asset is not generating any income. I know this topic is debatable. I know most people like saying no, but I bought an asset which is going to strengthen my balance sheet. But unfortunately, it also have a negative impact in terms of how a lender is going to view your balance sheet. Because remember, another thing is that when you buy this asset, already your balance sheet has a debt. Let's say, for an example, the bank was willing to give you 2 million. Already you've bought a luxury car that is worth 1.5 million. It simply means now the balance sheet can only absorb 500K instead of 2 million. And remember now, you use that money to capacitate the business, or you need that money to expand the business. Now you're sitting with an asset that is not going to help you to expand your business. So I think it's really important for us to also understand how financials are structured, how the balance sheet is structured, so that when you are running your business, when your accountant is presenting financial statements to you, you need to clearly understand what does it mean for you if you're going to be approaching a bank asking for money. Because of sometimes when you ask these questions, and then we realize that the entrepreneur is not even aware of what is happening on the balance sheet, and then they become surprised. So now let's look at some of the methods that banks or lenders used when they advanced finance. The first one, there's a method that they use that is called credit scoring. The second one is it's a manual assessment. With credit scoring, here they use algorithms or statistical data that can be used to make a decision. So remember in the previous slide, we talk about the basic elements that they use. So some of those basic elements, the lender will make rules out of those basic elements. For an example, the lender will say, I will only lend to a people that has a clear credit score, or someone maybe, let's say for an example, that has never had any areas in the past 2 months. If you've had areas in the past 2 months, automatic decline. That's an example of how a credit scoring does. So they typically just put rules in terms of on that credit scoring, and then they will feed the system with information, and then the system will then make a decision. So now, what are the advantages when it comes to credit scoring? One of the advantages when it comes to credit scoring is the speed in it. Because sometimes, as you are sitting with the banker, they can quickly score your application, and then within few minutes, you are able to get feedback. You are able to get feedback right on the spot. So I think the perfect example when it comes to credit scoring, it's where you are applying for a purchase order. There's a lot of fintechs that are actually doing that type of finance that we call them fintechs. What they do, they have a platform that scores an application, and then you are able to get feedback within 10 minutes, and then you are also able to get your funding the same day. And then also, another advantage is that there's consistency with credit scoring. Because remember, the system uses the very same rules for all the applications. So the system will make will apply the very same rules on each and every application. So the decisions that the system will be making will therefore be consistent. And then lastly, there's also scalability. With credit scoring, this system can take a huge number of volumes in terms of applications as compared to a manual system. But the disadvantage with the credit scoring is that there's no flexibility. And where the data is not available, the system is not able to make accurate decisions. Let's say, for an example, your information on your credit bureau, it's outdated. Let's say, for an example, you had areas or you had a judgment of which you have paid. If the system is not yet updated, the system will reject your application. Unfortunately, the system will reject your application, unless if they have to do a manual assessment. But in that particular situation whereby you have paid your areas, but the system still reflects as such, the system will automatically decline. So now let's look at manual assessment. Manual assessment involves a human touch. The likes of a credit manager will be the one that is assessing the application, taking into account the number of supporting documents that have been provided, and then they will make a decision from there. So the advantage is that here there's flexibility. If you come with a unique business case, the credit manager or the person that is looking at the application, they are able to apply their mind as opposed to credit scoring. Credit scoring cannot apply its mind. It cannot be flexible. Let's say, for an example, if you come up with a new concept, maybe of designing something, yes, maybe there might be a demand. We might all understand that there is a demand for a particular product. You're going to make profit. Such an application can be done under scoring because of scoring does not understand that there's a huge demand for that particular product. Scoring only needs us to feed it with the information, especially the financial data, in order for it to make a decision. And then the disadvantage of a manual system is that there's a lot of subjectivity because of, obviously, the credit manager that is looking at the application can be biased. If, for an example, the credit manager does not like a particular sector, or maybe that particular sector, maybe they've had a history of a lot of clients defaulting, that particular credit manager can decline the application simply because of previous experience, of which maybe your approach might be different from the other guys that were running a similar business model with you. So that's the only disadvantage of a credit system. And now, when you look at these two systems, I think in today's world, we can all agree that both these systems, they need a lot of enhancement because of entrepreneurship. Currently, it's on the forefront, especially when we want to have unemployment. Most young graduates, if they want to start businesses, we need to find ways in terms of how they can be accommodated in both systems. For an example, if you look at scoring is only advisable for small transactions and less complex transactions. You can't use a scoring on a complex transaction. Like, for an example, where you have a number of ownership, maybe where there's a use of trust, there's a use of co-ops. Scoring is not advisable to use scoring because of scoring might not have access to all the information that will be required for it to make a decision. So such an application will have to be manually assessed. So now let's move forward and look at the impact of collateral requirements. Firstly, let's check what is collateral. I think I did explain in the previous slide that collateral is an asset that a lender accepts as security for extending a loan. But I want us to have a look at why do banks require collateral, or why do lenders require collateral? Because of this topic is very important for us to understand, because of most of us are not happy with this requirement. But there's a lot of regulation, and there's a lot of understanding that we need to understand when it comes to collateral. So banks requires collateral for them to mitigate their risk, so that if you're not able to pay them, they are able to take over your asset, sell it and close off the loan. Because of if they're not able to do that, it simply means the bank will not be profitable. Remember, the core business of a bank is to sell money. By the bank selling money, they also want to make profit. If they sell money to you, you're not able to pay back, it means their business is not profitable. The same as in your business, when you are providing a service, you expect your client to pay you. If your client is not able to pay you, you're going to have cash flow problems, your business might not survive. Same as a bank. Also remember, banks also take depositors' money in order to provide loans. There's people that have surplus cash that will come to the bank to come and invest, maybe for 3 years, 5 years, 20 years. So now the bank will then take the very same money to give it to people that are looking for money. So now if you are taking a loan from the bank and you're not able to pay, on the other side, the bank is not going to be able to give back the money to the people that invested. So now, if banks are not able to recover loans, this can lead to an economic crisis similar to the one that we had I think in 2008 or 2009, where we experienced a recession. Also, another reason why banks also requires collateral is simply because of if you have provided a collateral to the bank, your behavior is going to be different as opposed to when you did not provide collateral to the bank. So in simpler terms, it's an incentive for you to repay back the loan. Remember, if you've got nothing invested, then you've got nothing to lose. What we've realized is that entrepreneurs that don't have collateral, that get unsecured loans, behave differently to entrepreneurs that have provided collateral. Because of if you have provided collateral, you understand that if you're not going to pay back, you're going to lose that property or you're going to lose that car. So your behavior is going to be different. Also, another advantage is that if you provide a bank with collateral, your risk is going to be minimal. The bank is not going to regard you as a high risk client. Therefore, the interest that are going to charge you is going to be very small, as opposed to a client that does not have a collateral to offer the bank. So now let's look at the negative impact of collateral requirements. Collateral requirements significantly restrict small businesses by limiting access to credit, creating a finance gap, and increasing the risk of loan denial due to insufficient assets, which hinders growth and discourages entrepreneurship. So we all know that if you don't have collateral, especially if collateral is one of the requirements, this simply means that you're not going to be able to get your loan approved. And I think most people get discouraged by this, especially if they want to scale up their business, especially if they want to apply for big loans. It's very difficult for them to get funding approved. So where collateral is required, or where collateral is one of the credit criteria, there's a high rejection rate because of it's not many people who have collateral or unbonded properties to offer to the banks. So I now want us to look at some of the solutions or alternatives that are available where clients don't have collateral. Number one, it's fintech platforms. I think in the country, we need a lot of fintechs. So as banks, we don't see fintechs as competitors. We actually see them as people that are going to enhance our system so that we can be able to provide a better service that is innovative and that is also of speed. Because remember, fintechs with innovative ways in terms of the solutions that they provide for funding. So banks do like partnering with fintechs in order to provide loans. And then number two, diversifying collateral. There's a number of collaterals that are available or assets that banks don't like to take. For an example, I think Tiro spoke about tribal land. Most people have land or properties that are housed under a tribal land. So it's very difficult for a bank to take that land because of legally, you are not the owner of that land. The traditional council or the chief is the owner of that land. You are just given permission to occupy. But I think we need to be creative or innovative in terms of how we can use land as well. There's ways to do it, but it involves a lot of legalities. Because I think banks are worried that if you've got land that is sitting on a tribal land, they are worried that, number one, did the chief or did the traditional council follow the right processes in order to award you that piece of land? Number two, they are also worried that in future, there's no one that is going to have a claim on that land. We have seen maybe in some examples whereby somebody builds something and then the municipality comes back to say, no, but this specific area was earmarked maybe for a clinic or for recreational facilities. So to avoid such things, I think one of the innovative ways that we need to formalize or standardize is that if someone has a business that is running or a property on a tribal land, we need to find a way in order for us to register a GNB over the lease, and then you also have a tripartite agreement between the client, the traditional council, and the bank, so that the traditional council does not have a right to terminate that PTO while the bank is still exposed. But I think we need to find this process to be standardized. Another method is also through blended finance. When we talk about blended finance,
Time so we can give them Q&A.
okay, sure. Another method is through blended finance. Blended finance simply talks about different funding mechanism in one loan. For an example, if you are looking for 100 million, especially in a very capital intensive environment, let's say for an example, manufacturing, you want to build a manufacturing plant, you are looking for 100 million, you don't have collateral. Another way of solving this is to get a blended finance. Blended finance is whereby we get a DFI to give you a grant, we get an equity partner to have a stake in the business, and then a portion can come in as a debt. In that way, it will reduce the collateral requirement by the bank. So as a bank, we also like partnering with DFIs because of, we like the blended approach because of it's not most clients that can offer collateral. And then lastly, another solution is also through business development support. I think Tiro spoke a lot about business development support. So with business development support, what we mean is that the funding that must be provided must also be coupled with non-financial support and help that can help to resolve any skills gap that will hamper the development of the business. Because remember, the lender or the bank is worried about performance risk. But if we couple the lending with non-financial support or technical support, that will support you when it comes to technical support, that risk will be mitigated. So with those few words, I would like to thank you. I'm not sure if we are running out of time for the questions. Okay.
No, thank you very, very, very much, Dace. Thank you. I think now on to what is the most important part of this morning is allowing you to ask our speakers questions and hopefully then getting the requisite support that you came here for. So I'm going to hand over, I'm not sure who is assisting here with the mics. We can maybe take a round of 4 questions and then hand over to the speakers and then another round. Thanks.
One, two, thank you. Thank you, Program Director. Excellent presentation, colleagues. My name is Bwani Dombela. For me, I wanted to share with you, if you're aware, there was a FinFund report that talks about access to funding for SMME. One of the key findings in that report, I will speak to my friend here next to me, BBC, that it's been 7 years. There's no regulation that enforces DFIs, IDCs, NEF, CFA, and others to share credit data to, for example, to Experian, so that one could monitor both personal and business, which means if you are paying a lender, that lender will submit the data to Experian, for example, so that it stays active. I'm not sure which witchcraft is holding us for us not to share the data for 7 years. Maybe we're going to spend another 30 years. We're going to look back and say, hey, it's been 30 years, but there's no data sharing for SMME so that it can then increase financial exclusivity for our businesses. So that's where my query is. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity. My first question, my name is Koni Matlejwane. I am the CEO at CRM Enterprise. It's a branding company. I also have Leroy Foundation, which is a non-profit organization that supports youthpreneurs, so young entrepreneurs. So my first question goes to the CIPC. What criteria do you guys use to come and do this sort of presentation? Because we had our youth summit on June 16, and we invited you to come and present, and the answer was that the CIPC has taken a stance. You no longer do physical presentation, you only do online. So you are here in person. So I just want to know how that works. So from the summit, we have taken in 15 of those youthpreneurs into an incubation program for 10 months, which we are currently running. And we came back knocking at the CIPC because these young people, we are taking a very ground root approach in that we are working with township youthpreneurs we're starting them from the very basics. So we invited you again. We have our session with them on the 18th, and luckily this time we compromised on the Teams meeting. So we've invited you, and we're gonna interact with you via Teams. It would be nice to have someone in person, but we can live with that. To ABSA, the question that I have, because you were talking about collateral, we wanted to apply for purchase order funding from the fintechs that you are praising so much. And one of the requirements, they said that we either need to change our current banking details, so we must open an account that they're gonna have access to, or give them access to our existing bank account, where now we cannot transact without their permission, they can't transact without our permission, which I said no, because I've never heard something like that. So I just want to know from you that, is that a real thing, and is it something that is acceptable? And to you, sir, I heard you talking about the obstacles. So there is one that is a particular thorn on the flesh of us new entrepreneurs in the branding space, in that our suppliers, they use the spend to give pricing. So we all use the same suppliers. We all use the Amrods of this world, we all use the Barons of this world, but then what they do is that if you don't spend 20 million with them, you don't get any discount. And someone that spends 20,000 with them, they get up to 22% discount. So for me, that is a barrier, because if I come and the corporates now have the 3-code system, I'm gonna come with my quotation and say that wall banner is 3,500 because I don't get a discount. But then Brandability will come and say that wall banner is 1,700. You take my quote and you put it in the bin because why are you being greedy? And this is something that I wish the Black Business Council or anyone who has a voice can raise it for us with these suppliers, because it creates a huge barrier for us. So we end up having now to collaborate with these big businesses even if you don't want to. So instead of me buying to Amrod direct, I have to go via a white company that gets 22% discount so that at least I can be somewhat competitive. Thank you very much.
Thank you. My name is Duduzile Sithole, Managing Director of MLG Mpendulo Legacy Group. I'd like to acknowledge Ubaba Khanki, Mr. Matabela, the CEO of the BBC, as well as Mr. Khalaleto, the Executive Enterprise, OASE ABSA. Thank you so much to the panelists, as well as the IDC yourself, Ms. Marume. So you've touched on the importance of invested effort from our end that is demonstrated via us being compliant with one of the regulations that the CIPC requires us to have. And Mr. Tiro also highlighted the risk around losing existing contracts that we would have as SMMEs due to non-compliant. So compliance is very complex and broad, depending on the industry that you trade in. And as MLG, we are in the highly regulated sector, including your mining, energy, and manufacturing. And as SMMEs, we are required, in order to be awarded contracts, to have either any of the ISO systems in place to ensure health and safety regulations, as well as the quality of our work. So the ISO system is a very expensive exercise, which becomes a challenge for us when we're trading with these big corporates, right? And I do understand that they are from their end ticking the box from a perspective of safety as we are or sending people in those environments. And I've also seen that there's a huge drive. The financial institutes now look at, as well as investors, they look at the ESG alignment, which also do require us to have those ISO systems, which means that if, as an SMME or a company, if you do not have or cannot demonstrate those ethical governance and social responsibilities, you will struggle to have access to capital. So I would like to ask, from an IDC perspective, as well as the bank, what support do you guys have to support SMMEs in order to ensure compliance from that perspective? Thank you.
And others to share credit and funds.
I'm a director of a company called Space, where we are coordinating South Africa's capability in the satellite manufacturing value chain, from Earth observation, GNSS, GPS, as well as Earth observation. I think we all know that a majority of the business that we generate is exports driven. I would have liked to hear a little bit more about that from the panelists. But beyond that, IDC, can you tell us a little bit perhaps about the business valuation processes that we can use to drive mergers and acquisitions, specifically between micro as well as small enterprises? We don't see enough activity in that area. It's usually more from the big multinationals downwards. CIPC, can you give us an indication of where things stand in terms of your substantive examination office for intellectual property? Right now, all of the IP that is registered in South Africa is not substantively examined here, but abroad, I believe in Europe in the main. When is that going to change? Because we're exposing our national IP to other nations before we can even register it. Then the question of reinsurance. I think, Dace, if you can perhaps take this from ABSA's perspective, because reinsurance talks to risk. How do we build those reinsurance partnerships with the big players globally so that they've got up-to-date information about what the risk scenario is actually in Africa? A lot of these guys make, when I say guys, I'm talking about the funders of funds. They make fund provisions that are not in sync with reality, purely because it serves their interest in that, the financing comes from the US, ergo if it's going to be deployed in another territory to generate them returns, it must be an excessively higher return. How do we manage that? And lastly, I'd like to get an opinion around what is the impact of establishing state-owned enterprises into the Johannesburg Stock Exchange? Thanks.
Okay, thank you for those questions. So maybe let's just deal with that first round. If I can maybe just group some of them. CIPC, and I know, Diro, you were also referenced in some. So it's obviously the complexity, depending on sector or sector that you're in respect of meeting the compliance requirements, especially by big corporates. That was raised. If you can just give reflections briefly, I think both from yourself, Diro, as well as my colleague from CIPC. And Diro, if you can then also similarly address the supplier development question that was raised in respect of branding and then the uncompetitiveness as a consequence, if anything. Just some thoughts on that. The credit data question, I guess I understood it as more of a comment and why that has not happened over the years. Diro, I'm not sure if you've got a thought on that, but if you don't, any of the colleagues as well, I'll also give reflection, I'm not sure what that is. And then if we can then, I'll address obviously then the opposition question that was raised, and if you can just state the reinsurance question that was raised, and similarly the last question that was raised by a gentleman. So I'm going to then hand over to...
Yeah, I think mine is just two questions, if I'm not mistaken. As a regulator, I will gladly retract myself from the conversation of the JSE listing for obvious reasons. But as far as the substantive search question, especially when it comes to our patents, predominantly I believe that what you'll be asking mainly for, we are busy with that. We've just finished appointing personnel in that area with specialized qualifications in the different type of sectors that we believe are the bigger part of what we would need for those substantive searches. So I cannot commit to a date yet because you would know that we do belong to different treaties and conventions that we'd have to disclose to before we start. However, it is in motion. The personnel have started. A necessary system for that has been acquired. And we are just going through the nuts and bolts on our side before we implement on that. Maybe just to add on that, we're also getting into AI trademark search services where we get AI to check and search trademarks before we actually go into the process of registering. and we've seen great benefit from that. So substantive search, yes, this has been one thing that we fought for a while. Even the law firms, I know we're not on good terms with them on that too, but it has to be done. It's one of those that has to be done. Regarding, I'm tempted, but with South Africans, you can run a joke and you end up being in trouble. Where the lady says, what is the criteria? And I'm tempted to say, Animal Farm teaches us that we are all equal, but some of us are more equal than But on the real side, let's speak about that offline. I suspect you were speaking to our education side that could have given you that kind of positioning, which in essence is not really incorrect, but there are mitigations that can be put in place to try and assist you. So we'll speak about that offline. I think mine are done, yeah? Thank you.
Okay. I think I'll start with the credit point or issue there. From where I see it, I think we also have a recent one that's very topical from this week and last week with regards to student loans and people being able, that's being visible to your experience. It's a double-edged sword. From where I sit as a enterprise development specialist, remember that government's purpose or nature is developmental. So once we expose all your credit to Experian and the rest, it will be at a disadvantage for most entrepreneurs in the system. That's just the reality that we live in. So I think there might be very good reason for that delay and perhaps not in considering it, looking at the fact that government's purpose is on a developmental aspect. So you are trying to help even those that might have those, they spoke about the system doesn't discriminate. If you had 2 payments that were missed in the last 2 months, you are automatically put on the side or rejected. Now imagine that throughout the system where somebody has been delayed for a payment by a municipality. We know how our municipalities are mostly dysfunctional. So from my standpoint, as somebody who works with SMMEs, I'm happy with the delay, simply because it's just going to cause even more obstacles in the way for SMMEs in South Africa. Okay, and then to the lady regarding the pricing, you touched on something that I've personally experienced with a program that I was running for one of the universities, where we had SMME specifically in branding, and the university somewhere in the Eastern Cape. And it was a supplier development program where we assist them in filling the gaps. Somebody also asked about what does the bank do. So this particular program was around building capacity within SMEs. And once you've done that, and the idea is that they then become suppliers to an institution or to other people. And in that cohort, there was about 5 SMMEs that were in branding. And they kept coming back to me and saying, we are submitting. You are telling us that we must submit for these RFQs within the university, because the university was also the sponsor of the program. So the university is sponsoring to develop you, but at the end, it's not giving you. So one of the solutions, and I think it's just a philosophy to maybe adapt as well. Some of these things are at NEDLEC, and you and I are not going to change them. So one of the solutions that I gave to those 5 SMMEs was to say, Emerald here in Woodmead, open an account, collaborate, where you open an account and you all buy through that account in order to then raise your spend and be recognized and then be given, because they work in tiers, like you were saying, in terms of spend. So that's one of the things that you can counter those things, because it's not something that even BBs, because remember, you're also dealing with individual capitalist businesses. It's very difficult to deal with some of these situations, but through that kind of solution where you collaborate with other practitioners in the same space and you use one account to buffer your spend. So that's one of the solutions. The other question was regarding compliance. And I'll give also another practical example where one of our clients is Sasol. And you spoke about mining and they're in that space. So when you take Sasol, for instance, Sasol is a highly regulated, high-risk safety environment. So when it comes to compliance, it's a non-negotiable. They cannot afford to give you a chance because you are black, you are women, you are disabled, you are youth, and risk having a disaster at a mine or at a fuel, you understand? So there are certain industries where there will not be a deviation. They will put other measures in place. So for instance, they will provide for you to get your SHAC certification. They will, we come in and we look at those gaps and we provide you with that kind of compliance and put you in touch with it. And that's just the reality that we must also adopt, that look at the environment in which you are operating and just comply. Unfortunately, I don't have the silver bullet to say these things are going to disappear, but that's part of how you are also going to differentiate yourself as a small business. Because if we have 100 applications for RFQ and you are the only one that has the ISO, which we have stated that you need that, then you see that you are then bettering your chance with securing that business. Because you are still competing, even amongst yourself as small businesses. So it's up to you to then ensure that you are above the rest. Unfortunately, you're just going to have to comply. Look at your industry, look at what are the highest sort of certifications that you need, and just get them. We have a limited time in your business life cycle. Don't fight the fights that are going to drain you. Rather, just comply, unfortunately.
Okay, I think there was a comment here regarding credit data. Khanki, I think this one, maybe it's something that we need to check whether it was tabled before at ASA. And then there was a question from a lady there regarding purchase order funding. So for us, how we do purchase order funding, yes, we require you to bank with us because remember, we are not requesting collateral from you. We highly depend on that payment to come into our account so that we take our portion, what is left is given to you. How we do it? We open a GFM account. It's a third-party account in your profile. In your profile, it's not a transactional account. We were not interested in a transactional account. This GFM account that we open is where your client is to pay the money into, and then immediately the money hits the account. We take our portion, what is left is transferred into your transactional account. Because remember, should we divert the money to go into another bank where we don't have access, you might do whatever you want to do with the money, and then we are going to be left exposed. So for us to have comfort, we require the money to be paid into an account because you're giving us collateral. I think there was a question here regarding how to support this regarding with compliance. So for us, there's a lot of ways in terms of how we assist with compliance. Let me give an example. Most of the things when we start, they are not able to afford a bookkeeper account for them to do their financial management account. Obviously, for you to apply for money, we need to require you to at least have management accounts or financial statements. If you can afford, we can then give you an account. We have a pool of accounting firms that can actually support you. But over and above, there's a lot of financial support we provide to our clients. If you come to us, if you are a woman or youth, you do get access to a number of masterclass. Some of those masterclass are actually to comply to comply with CPC, where you comply with SAPS, etc. So you get access to those masterclasses. It's up to you to pick and choose which one will be relevant in your business. I missed the last question. So normally as a bank, we don't do business valuations ourselves. That function is either outsourced or we can refer you to a reputable evaluator that we have used in the past, but we don't get involved in valuations. Okay? Yeah, we can share with you our preferred evaluators that you can use. Or if let's say for example you have already used one that is known to us, we'll accept it. But if the evaluator we have used is not known to us, we'll then refer you to someone that we know because of remember how the valuation is done. Sometimes it's complicated. Sometimes some businesses operate in a very technical technical space where we need comfort that the person that did the valuation, we can actually rely on the work that they have done.
Okay, maybe can I suggest, just in the interest of time and allowing others perhaps to ask questions, I'm mindful of a dialogue. We can take it up afterwards if that's okay with you. Yeah? Okay. So on the compliance issue, I mean, I think it's similar to my colleague Dace. We've got what we call pre-investment business support. So obviously at a point of contact with us, and you having done considerable work in respect of your own space that you are looking to enter into or that you are already in, we then can engage and identify obviously those gaps and see where support can be provided. But also once, and in the event we do get over the line, you extend funding to yourselves, we also have a business support grant that then also gets included in the overall financial support that we lead on with the applicant. So to address similarly a lot of the issues that Dace highlighted, like management accounts, governance-related issues, whatever we would have analyzed or at least assessed as potential gaps that are not immediately fillable, but through our panel of service providers, we can then partner with yourselves to ensure that we upskill and support. It's our best interest, obviously, that you succeed so that you are able to pay back the money that we have loaned to yourself. So that's important. There was a comment made in respect of exports. Obviously, I'm mindful that we've got a diverse audience that is likely involved in a range of sectors, some of which we cover, some of which perhaps we don't cover. I did state up front that we lend to both, in terms of our coverage, it's also South Africa and rest of the continent and rest of world, I mean, if you have contracts that you are servicing to end user clients based anywhere else in the world, of course we will support that. For instance, you've got, in our agriculture, agro-industry space, exporting agricultural products, to markets elsewhere. So, we would support you in respect of that, but certainly I think from our end, it's really supporting the export of SA capital goods and or services, and more importantly, capability to the rest of the continent and whoever else you are contractually servicing in the rest of the world. So I hope that addresses that. In terms of acquisitions, and maybe less so mergers and acquisitions, but our core interest as a development finance institution is to address concentration, economic concentration. So if there is a significant opportunity that has arisen in the market where we are required to support, and in doing so, it addresses the structural concentration challenges that we continue to have and experience 30 years on. So certainly we will do that. Where we have perhaps refined our posture over the years is less interest in supporting entrepreneurs looking merely to be portfolio investors. We don't believe that is our mandate. It's likely better serviced by our other commercial partners. And when I say portfolio investors, I mean passive investments that don't entail active management control or involvement in the company by the Black entrepreneurs that we are supporting. So if it's purely for just financial gain, we are not the right fit for you as a portfolio investor. But certainly we want to support Black entrepreneurs who want to create, industrial capacity and provide long-term strategic direction in the target entity that has been identified. and certainly looking for strategic and operational involvement. A high level of ownership, 50% and above, that's what is of interest to us and what we would prefer to support. And certainly if the businesses in manufacturing and related sectors that support South Africa's economy, as it were. So that's kind of where we would want to play, and certainly then provide acquisition support in that respect. So I hope it gives you a sense of where we start and stop, and perhaps where other entities are better suited to support portfolio type investment postures. So you have to be operationally involved, but at a transformational level, if it addresses concentration issues, that's something that going forward on a more targeted basis we want to support. So yeah, okay, thanks.
Good afternoon. My name is Mokwati Rampisa. I'm CEO of Global Wealth Management. So we just got authorization from FSCA to render services under Tier 1 in February. So my questions, of course, are around funding. First one on valuation. How can I, as a young financial services business, fund or evaluate my business so that I can get funding either through equity, debt, or grants? And then lastly, in terms of debt, how can we position ourselves, especially to use IDC or to actually at IDC, ABSA, and YAGNA, how can we position ourselves so that we're able to get funding and scale further? I think that'll be all for myself.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Kumo Mulusiwa. I am a female in logistics. Mine are more teething phase issues, and I think that we tend to overlook these issues, and majority of the SMMEs are faced with these when they are trying to reach out to your establishments. Your phone lines are not working. Your email addresses are not being responded to. The links on your websites are not working. And that's why we find ourselves in a position where we have to pay people to do the work. How they've got access to you guys, we don't know. And I think these are the issues that, like I said, we tend to overlook them, but they are a pain in our flesh. To the days, ABSA. There's an account that you guys have for women in business. And I'll talk to you about my personal experience. I tried to open an account online. The section where it says upload supporting documents or your business documents, the website crashes out. It's been a week. No one from ABSA has phoned me to say, ma'am, we can see that there's an active application on our website. Are you struggling? Is there any way we can assist you? And I left it deliberately because I just wanted to see. We all don't have the liberty to walk into a bank. The convenience of sitting in my office and doing an online application. And I need to trust ABSA with my money. Yet no one says, hi, we see there's a bottleneck. So these are little things that I wish that companies would actually look at. You spoke about collateral. And this is a question that I follow a lot of financial education platforms. And I have learned that you can actually use your life policy as a collateral. I don't know if that is true. If it is, please do explain to us. Because people have life policies with millions of rands, and maybe they could use that to get financing. And my final question is, what are we doing to find subcontracts? Because some of us do not have access to direct contracts, and someone who believes in you and sees your potential is willing to give you a subcontract so that you can kick off. But the banks are not giving us the support that we need. Thank you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Princess Leletu of Bondo Kingdom. I work at Shuda Attorneys at Office Park, Brighton Gate, Block 5. I wanted to ask the people who are mentioning to our SMEs, our black businesses. The same question I asked the Minister of Small Business, and she was kind of impressed, because at the end of the day, government has to account to our people. That's also our vision and our plan. Also, you can bring the side, you guys make working out of business. There is different as people need to have a business idea firm, because at the end of the day, even though it's a business, but it's a business empowered to empower other businesses as well. We have a firm majoring in corporate, business, labor side. I just want to know your guys' plan on the legal side and your guys' plan to partner with law firms. Because I feel even government sidelines that they need this legal guidance to guide people, to guide these SMEs to grow, because they fail in compliance, the legal side. What is your plan? Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. My name is Tony Boyson. I'm from the Black Business Council, where I'm leading the BBC ICT organized business, where we focus just on business and transformation. I'm also representing the Black Business Council in the BBB ICT Sector Council, who is responsible for transformation in the ICT sector in South Africa through the ministry, DCT, DT. From my perspective is that the ICT sector is the most important sector in South Africa. It's a cut through to all sectors, and it's really the base for economic and socio-economic development in South Africa. My experience, especially with DFIs and also private funders, we are really tired. I think we test the waters in South Africa. And as for black businesses, black SMEs in particular, we don't see us as small business, but we see us as big business. Thank you, CIPC. It's really a valuable information that you gave to us. And I think our SMEs in the ICT will comply. You know, we fund enterprise supply development, we're tired of it. What I propose is that the DFIs, the IDCs, CFAs, and also private funders, is that we must partner up with you, because the ICT is a capital-intensive sector. And I don't think the DFIs or the private sector, especially if black businesses come propose to them, they don't understand. I know there's amnesia, but we test the waters, we are tired. My proposal is through the BBC, the CEO's office, is that we sign a partnership to the IDCs, to the banks, to really, I'm talking to myself, the ICT, because the ICT is not fiber or big rollout, it's a portion of it. What about the whole Aussie stack? If you look at the core network, the enterprise network, the IT information technology, if you look at your manufacturing, and also we've got a free skills development and training department to support them. So all those segments, subsectors in the ICT, we need funding. And we are people, competent, seasoned technocrats to do that. So my proposal, CEO, is that we must have special sessions with IC, with APSA, to really look into funding in the markets, and we can do it from a coordinated and facilitated approach, so that we've got a high level of seasoned SMEs, and then we've got EMEs, we've got also individual ICT professionals who we can develop into the ICT sector. I think I'm looking forward for that engagement. Thank you.
I own different companies, but I'll mention maybe two. The other one is Gonabet Properties Developers. The second one is Neo Vital. You know, you have experience like a gentleman, you criticize. I've been in business for over 27 years. I've knocked on your doors many times. In Palale, Waterberg, I've got coal reserves. In 2012, I applied, no funding for mining. Yes. So in 2016, and actually before that, I ran the program Vision 2050. Remember in the year 2000 when they said computers were going to crash? We were the one that fixed the problem. And then I came with a program called Vision 2015 to donate computers to all the schools in South Africa. I came to you to support, you didn't. Only ESCOM and SABC did. Let's leave that. What I'm trying to say is, you guys, you're all talks. I don't know who you're funding. I really don't know who you're funding. Because if you were really funding, I'll give an advice. Go to every single province province, close your eyes, go to 9 provinces, identify businesses, and fund them. Because people that you're funding, most of them are your cousins, not real business people. If you want to make it happen and to create opportunities, go to Lephalale and find people that are into mining, find people that are into farming. Go to Eastern Cape, find those people and help them. In most cases, people that create these kind of bulbs are not retailers, are not marketers, are innovators. And those are the people that you need to fund. In this case, let me present NeoVital to you. Last year, I found a remedy to shrink a prostate gland. My father got diagnosed with prostate enlargement. And then I had to find a remedy for him not to take any medicine from the chemist. Because when you go to scam, nowadays, there is a queue of people as if they are in Pick n Pay. Same in this. So I found a remedy, and I'm glad I met Tiro yesterday, of which I believe is going to help to develop. So this remedy is now coming with a tea. We're now manufacturing the capsule and the tea bags. And then I'm challenging you to buy the machines, to do the manufacturing and packaging. Because if really you are into creating jobs, this program will create over 1,000 jobs throughout all the provinces. Because when you go to urologists, they'll tell you there's no cure for prostate cancer, but we give the cure. Before and after. He got the test, the prostate was enlarged. After using the product for about 3 weeks, actually, the prostate was shrinked. So these are the programs that you're supposed to actually support. But instead, you're supporting programs that are polished according to people being advised by cousins within the organizations. That's why at the end of the day, those people, they don't come back to you and pay you the money because they're not entrepreneurs. So my challenge to you is go to all 9 provinces, identify businesses, and assist them. Because with this NeoVital, from next year, we're gonna actually plant maize, because we're continuing this from maize. We're gonna plant maize in all the provinces. And then from there, create the youth to actually rip off that maize and bring it to our warehouse, whereby we'll then manufacture more products to help the people, especially people of my age that are 50 plus. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Riranzo Nukeri, and I'm from Limpopo, currently residing in Johannesburg. So I just want to agree with this man right here that you guys are all talk, and this one is directly to the IDC. I'm talking from experience. So I have applied because I have found a better way of manufacturing garments with high quality and trying to minimize fast fashion. So what we do, my company is Cal Solutions, so what do we do? Product development from manufacturing garments to cosmetics and all. So what I've realized is that these are the pointers that I feel like IDC, they just decide what to look at. First is trying to tell us to go get letters of intent. Who have applied to IDC and they were told that you must go get letters of intent? Yes. So if now I'm making a sweater, for example, and it costs 7,000, how do you expect China to buy from me as a manufacturer? And if you say now I have to go to Markhams, for example, Markhams is going to ask 55% of that garment. How much am I left with as a manufacturer? Are you expecting me to even be the people that you want me to employ as the finance? And on top of that, I was applying, first my financials. I was not even supposed to say, first, what I have to is that they have no idea what I'm doing. They have no idea about the market that I'm in and where I want to take it. So we say that we want to actually take our brands to international, because when we're looking at our economy as enlarged as it is, it's like brand is not doing good. But now if you are saying to me, there is a consultant that's going to help you with your business business plan. Okay, I did do the business plan and that's where it got me here. But at the same time, the very same consultant that you guys have appointed is butchering financials to business planning. they're just butchering everything. 1 year later, 1 year, 6 months later, you come back and say, oh, sorry, we are here to regretfully tell you that your application was not successful. Was it me or your consultant that you guys appointed? So it goes back to, it seems like you are just all talk and actually you're not actually willing to fund us. Because I can give you a testament of, I have a friend who has been funded, and mind you, this is not a racial thing, but unfortunately he's white. He's been funded since he was 19. And now he has a project that you guys are willing to fund that is about 200 million. So it means that in actual fact, like IDC, you're really not actually taking care of the, like, I don't know, like, this is how I feel, and I think it's something that you have to look at and really deeply, because what you guys are doing, no, your cousin can be the only ones who are eating from the pot. Thank you.
They are told to start where they are with what they have. And a lot of times we hear the stories that your business will fail. We've heard that a lot of times. And they will then say to you that if your business does not fail, then it means you're not an entrepreneur. You just need to keep on going. Forgetting that there's resources that are involved in that. So then they will say businesses fail because of financial management, businesses fail because of lack of funding, businesses fail because of access to markets. And the answer to that would be to over-incubate small businesses. We are over-incubated. I don't know how many incubation programs that I've attended, and yet still not even a single person from any panelist has ever actually even taken the time to understand my business. Because we also, I would like to also say that to funders and panelists, you need to understand that we also come from, we start businesses because of the skills that we have, the core skills that we have. Finance management is not my core skill. I bet like probably a lot of people here as well, finance management and legal as well is not our core skills. I got into business because I know I am good at a certain skill and I actually want to use that or leverage from that. But now when I go to a funder and then a funder tells me, oh no, we don't understand your business, and I try by all means. Beautiful slides, you know, videos, pictures, and all that. And then when it comes to finance management, then we get disqualified. I would really appreciate it if funders then came back to me and say, you were disqualified because of this and that. How do we rehabilitate? Rather than saying, oh no, there will be another incubation program in 6 months' time, attend that, whereas I'm going to be told the same thing. And then I would also like to speak on the secondary services that, the comment that SMMEs like to pay, right? Yes, we like to pay because we want to focus on our core business. We want to focus on our core business. And also, again, I would like to reiterate what Kumo said. We are struggling particularly with government-owned entities that then refer us to online. And then there is navigating those online the websites. It's very difficult. And there isn't any tutorial or incubation program that will say, this is how you navigate our system. Even the employees themselves, who are not business people, by the way, do not know how to navigate the websites. That's another issue that we have. And those things, when you put them together, they add up. And we end up using our own finances to a point where our funds are depleted. And when we go to ABSA, ABSA's looking at you and they're saying, sorry, your finances are not in order because now you're not making a profit. We don't even know how you're going to pay us back. At that time, you've used all your resources and now you don't even have recourse as to how do I even rehabilitate this business. And not because the business is a bad business, but because of what you have gone through as an entrepreneur to prove that you are worthy of funding or worthy of support. So my suggestion, this is a final point, is that can we please have, instead of those incubation programs, can we have one, what we call compliance incubation programs that is mandatory for every person who is starting a business. In that way, to avoid the pitfalls of losing resources and going around the rat race of not even seeing your your business becoming profitable and actually fundable. Thank you.
Thank you for the feedback and comments and suggestions that have been leveled. Maybe let me take what was directed to IDC before I hand over to my colleague at ABSA. Obviously, I think you would appreciate I haven't the context of the propositions you make reference to, and certainly let alone the details. So I've always made myself available to Kanki and his team that please, he's got the details, happy to engage and to see what happened that should have not happened, or maybe a no that should have been expressed at the get-go without the runaround. I certainly think take your comment a year and 6 months is not acceptable to get to know. You know, I think entrepreneurs want to have a sense very quickly, within a reasonable spectrum of time, that we have a proposition that has the potential for bankability, and can I have a sense of when, you know, we can arrive at a decision. Yeah, I think that's only fair. And I think there's also the maturity to appreciate a no. You know, if it's a no, and a no to your point with reasons, not a no to refer you elsewhere, but there's also obligation to refer you elsewhere if you're not fit, you know, mandate-wise. So I think it's only correct and fair. So I'm happy to take on that issue. I think yours were more comments in respect of over-incubation, but really more targeted, issue-based, perhaps, support that you are pleading for from the broader MSME or SME ecosystem, as it were. Again, mindful of the audience in the room and the level of complexity and spectrum in terms of coverage of businesses and sectors. So I say that respectfully. So, Kanki, please, yeah, Jenny tells me. I'm happy to take on those issues and to close that, and I just take it as feedback. I think your point as far as access, spot on. I think that's something that's feedback, I think, to all of us. I took in that spirit that if you say your story matters, if you say patient partnership, you know, on our end, your partner in development finance, that really needs to be lived and experienced through the way in which you touch us, you feel us, and ultimately your experience with us. So I take that with me, and more than welcome to engage, and I'll redirect you accordingly. I wasn't sure if I understood your question correctly in respect of valuations. Was it you are in the business, this is what you do? Oh, okay. You're a financial services company, and then you want to know how you would interact perhaps with us from a funding perspective, as funding you. Okay, maybe I'm happy to take that offline with you so I can understand exactly what it is that you do, and then also just mandate alignment. But obviously, from a valuations point of view, to be in context of position of approach as an opinion, and pushing forward, definitely the is done some baseline valuation, some back capability, at least to get a sense of, you know, price. We would obviously, through our auditor capability, also, do evaluation, just so to arrive at price parity of sorts, you know, around what the actual, you know, base price for the opportunity that's been identified should be, and what we are willing and prepared to fund, because sometimes the sellers can overstate, you know, and you would know, you know, you're in the space, price as well. So then I can obviously talk through what we would want, you know, in respect of the target company, that kind of information to inform that conversation, the technical aspects, obviously around that. Typically 3-year financial historical statements, that sort of thing. But yeah, but otherwise we don't do financial services in the strict sense of providing funding to a financial services outfit. But where we do interface with financial services or financial service type hybrid company would be through what we call financial intermediaries, where we also provide a facility to a financial intermediary to then go and on-lend to the MSME segment, or perhaps maybe where we don't strictly play, yeah, and we don't have that capability to turn things around quickly, like purchase orders or something. That's not really our play or business, you know. So that's kind of where we would interface with financial intermediaries, as it were. But I'm happy to engage a little bit further to understand what you are asking for. And then, yeah, I mean, on that, it's a contentious one, you know, the letters of intent issue. Of course, it's a chicken and egg, you know, and the letter of intent is really to give a sense of potential interest in respect of what it is you will be rendering to the market and whether there is appetite or, you know, potential uptake. So I've seen in many instances you don't have a secured contract, you know, but certainly having been doing whatever it is that you're doing, you've generated an interest. And on the back of that, you know, we look at budgets and see, you know, what's possible, you know. So yeah, it's a key one, but it is important, obviously, when there is a contract, it makes it easier because then we take risk on that contract, and then we can, you know, look at the specific financing requirements on the back of that. But yeah, as I said, I don't have details, so I'm careful not to make assumptions and stuff, but there wasn't necessarily an answer at all. And I take that on board. And to him, get in touch with me. So I had over, I think, about a minute in this, and this was actually I answer that. That question because I answered. Lawrence, again, through country, and his team, we have a vested interest in supporting black firms, and to, was it, on a 3-year cycle, also take on a retainer basis for exactly, you know, services in which you have referred to, at least from our end. So that's something we do.
I think let me start with the question of subcontracting before I forget. So funding subcontracts, it's very tricky. So I think the golden rule for a lender, as long as we can understand who's your subcontractor, then we can fund, because of, before I fund you, I need to be comfortable that the subcontractor has a balance sheet to so I can pay back. But if I don't know who's your subcontractor, it's very difficult for a lender to lend you. So I think the tricky part is that sometimes when we are doing a subcontractor, we will request a subcontractor to provide us with financial. Sometimes they refuse. That's the difficult part. It's always easy if we are funding you, if you've got a subcontract from a reputable business or a company that we are banking. If we are banking a subcontractor, already we have their financial information. We can just go and look to check how is their financial performance looking like. Then we are happy to fund you. But if your subcontract, if your contract ideal, and it was also a startup, it's also a startup, has no financials, has no balance sheet, it's going to be very difficult for lender to lend money. Unless if Tiro is also doing the very same job that you are doing, is got a strong balance sheet, it's a different conversation. And then I think your other question was around a life cover. Can we use a life cover as collateral? A life cover can be used as collateral to a certain extent, especially whereby a bank has provided you with a very small facility. Sometimes we can issue a facility that is unsecured without collateral. Maybe, let's say, for an example, the bank has given you a smaller overdraft of 500K or $1 million, unsecured, because of the relationship that we're having with the bank. You've been banking with the business, you've been a very good client, your business is profitable. We have confidence that if we are giving you this 1 million, you'll be able to pay it back should we call up the facility. We can then give you that money, and then we just say to you, at least have a life cover in case something happens to you. So as a bank, we have already taken a decision that we are comfortable to give you this 1 million. The reason why we want you to take a life cover is simply because of if should something happen in the future, then the bank will still be covered. Not that we are going to be entirely relying on a life cover as security. Because of, remember, a life cover only pays out should something happens to you. If you default and nothing happens to you, it still means you're not going to be able to pay the loan. And then I think there was also a comment around you opening an account online. I'm very sorry about your experience, but I think we just need to investigate in terms of at what stage were you at, because of, remember, when you are applying online, there's certain information, personal information that you need to provide so that we can be able to see on the other side who's the applicant, so that we can have your contact details and be able to call you. I'm not sure at which stage did we have the glitch, but I'm happy to take your details, and then I can get one of our consultants to give you a call and finalize the process. And then to the gentleman here, I think there was a question around was it valuation or funding? Yeah, so from our side, in terms of the funding options that we have, as long as we can rely on the strength of your cash flow projections, we will be able to lend you, even if you don't have collateral. We've got programs where we can still lend you, even if you don't, number one, you don't have collateral. Number two, you don't have financial statements, you don't have a strong balance sheet. So our finance is not, meaning we don't put great emphasis on past historicals. As long as we can rely on the strength of your projections, we will be in a position to fund you.
I think maybe I just want to add to your solutions there, as someone who's recently got their FSC license, is that you can also look at, and you kind of mentioned it, around being a wholesale lender for the likes of SITFA, NEF. They do have partnerships with smaller, because it's a capacity issue that they're not necessarily going to reach everyone. So they will then park the money with you to then on lend to others. So that's another way of building your credibility as well. But getting that, you are going to need the compliance. And then to the lady that spoke about the lawyers, I'm happy to tell you that in our company, we do have partnerships with lawyers, accountants as well to offer. And I think it partly answers also what you raised. Because unfortunately, and maybe to go back to you, as a business owner, yes, we understand that you started a business because of a passion that you have and a certain skill set that you have. It might be you've worked in corporate, and you have that skill. But like it or not, as a business owner, you're going to have to tap into the finance aspect, the legal aspect, we're not saying be an expert in finance, we're not saying be an expert in law, but understand as a business owner the basics of labor law so that you know how to do contracting. Understand the basics of finance so that you can be able to read your financials, so that when your accountant does the financials for you, you are able to also interrogate those documents and even interrogate the accountant, because the bank is not going to sit with your accountant when you apply. They are going to ask you about your management account and how you arrived at the net profit there. You can't just say, we've seen it. Lastly, on over-incubation, that is a fallacy. We work throughout the country. The need in this country is still immense. In Gauteng, you might be right in that there is a concentration of a lot of programs, activities from all corporates, and hence why, as we speak now, our company is going to have a roundtable with a number of corporates for something that solves that issue of incubating, because unfortunately, the incubation aspect is also based on budgets. So only limited things can be done by ABSA when they contract us. We are then saying to ABSA, let's bring in other players. Let's bring in our other clients so that when you are incubated for 6 months, 12 months, we've got Telco, who's one of the people that we are speaking to. We've got ICT, we're speaking to Microsoft, for instance, to join hands so that at the end of that 12 months incubation, you are no longer going to be in another incubation. What you are then provided at that end of the 12, because of the collaboration, because unfortunately there is a budgetary issue that is a reality, you then get the best value from that 12 months. So we are solutioning for that. We're having a roundtable with some of them. No, I'm saying it's a fallacy in terms of South Africa is huge. Think of somebody who's sitting in Soekmekar. I'm agreeing with you. Yes. And %, and we're bringing that to the 100%, and that's what we are solutioning for. What I meant is that, remember, we've got 60 million people in South Africa. There's someone sitting in KwaDugu, there's someone sitting in Volkskraal, there's someone sitting in Malamulela who is not exposed as much as somebody sitting in Gauteng to incubation programs, who needs those incubation. I just want to caution around us, because of our lived, yes, the lived experience of some entrepreneurs living in Gauteng and in the Western Cape and other big metros, is that there is too much incubation. But that is not necessarily the lived reality for a lot of SMEs. And hence, we as a company, deliberately, we work in Limpopo, in Northwest, in Eastern Cape, etc., where what we may take for advantage here in Gauteng does not exist at all. They never get these types of opportunities. If you look in Gauteng today, there might be 10 other similar kind of setups where people are sitting and helping entrepreneurs. And I agree with you 100%. And we are trying to solution for that and having those conversations with corporates to say, let's do it differently, like you are saying. Thank you.
Was there a question for CIPC? Though?
There wasn't. I see you want to say something, but
No, I am
nothing
burning
specific.
to say something,
Yes,
but
that's
the
what I'm saying,
unfortunate
yes.
thing, when and I will appeal to be heard correctly. In the business of service delivery, it's an ever-moving goalpost. Meaning, it's not a destination you're going to arrive. But similar goes for the consequence of driving a car is you have to pour petrol. You don't have to like the price of it, but you have to pour petrol. The consequence of driving a car, you have to put on wheels when they are worn out. You might not be a preference of using tar as a person, but it's a consequence of you driving a car. And why I say that, it's unfortunate today, ma'am. It's always easy when the public speaks about government officials. They are not even in business. It's unfortunate today you got one who's everything that you spoke of, and I'll hit on all of them. They are not even in business. Unfortunately, we are. Unfortunately. Let me finish. No, wait. Well, dialogue after me and you. But what I'm saying is, when you say they are not in business, unfortunately, I am. And when I speak on conviction on certain services of the CIPC, it's because the mantra of the organization is we simplify so that the business can go on with the business of doing business. That's where we come from. It's the first time today ever, and I travel the whole country, even sometimes the world, where I hear the first time hearing a complaint that you've put stuff online. I mean, CIPC is one of the only organizations as a regulator in the country that does not have offices in all 9 provinces. And it's intentional, because we are saying we need to service you where you are sitting. Don't come to us. That's why when Kumo, you say you are calling, for example, I hope when you say calling, you don't count us, because our call center is a very long waiting queue, but the number is working, just that the queue is long. But for us, what bothers us would be, why do you have the need to call? We need to find out that, because where we solve from a view of, you should not have the need to call us. Where I'm sitting, you should not. You should be that at 11 o'clock at night, after you've done everything and you're like, now let me check my stuff. You should have all the services available to you at that 11 o'clock at night. Meaning you can't call us at that time, obviously, but from a service and an information point of view, everything you need, you should have access to. Sorry? I'm getting there. I'm getting there. That's like today, unfortunately, you found the wrong one. Because even at CIPC, unfortunately, I'm the person who does the voiceover on all navigations. The last navigation we did, you can Google it now on YouTube or whatever. The last navigation we did 2 weeks ago was the simplification of beneficial ownership, where I personally recorded a video that's put up there that shows you how you can file BO without submitting security register. without submitting beneficial ownership interest register, without submitting a mandate. Once again, I also go to the simplicity of where we come from as an organization. I can't speak for others, I can only speak for us. We've even watered down the wording we use on our website to match what social media uses. Because where it says name, you should know that it's saying name. Where it says ID number, we hope you know it says ID number. You know? We even went as far as having what you call Q-tips, that when you put a cursor where we say date of issue of your ID, we even explain what we mean when we say date of issue of ID. So I'm appealing. Me and you, we're going to go outside. I remember I said, those who hate us, we can fight outside. Definitely. But I'm appealing. Business owners, go on to sites the same amount of time you spend on social media. Go play on our sites. Go play on our YouTube. Unfortunately, that's why today you got the wrong one, because even videos that are on YouTube of the organization, unfortunately, I'm the one who does it. And it's not even my function, by the way, even at CIPC, because I'm not even part of communications. But let's get ourselves equipped. And I think if you keep in mind that in the service of delivering any service, it's an ever-moving goalpost. So always equipping becomes your lifelong friend till it is that you either leave business or the unfortunate happens. Thank you very much.
Well, to our most important audience, which is yourselves, I'm mindful that many of you have been here since 9, if not 10, and you've extended your time, given your interest, obviously, on the topic and the discussions to almost 1:30. So I do want to express sincere appreciation to yourselves for staying the course and investing in yourselves and us. So thank you very much. And please also assist me in extending appreciation to our speakers this morning. And of course, none of this would have been possible without the partnership between BBC and ABSA. And Percy, please accept my apologies. I did not acknowledge your charge to us. So absolutely, I think let's take up the discussion. ICT, through obviously BBC and ourselves, yeah, let's do that. And with that, I just want to say thank you for affording us your time. And certainly, I think we take on the feedback and the comments. And I just want to say, you know, it's a partnership. You know, it's easier on the other side as a lender. But I certainly do have some appreciation of the challenges that you face on the other side of creating livelihoods and supporting livelihoods, if not sustaining livelihoods. And certainly, I think the ambition that you've taken on and not getting a salary on the 25th or 15th or whatever it is, you know, and on the other side of rules and compliance and all sorts of things that we want, sometimes we may not always have that appreciation. But you are the braver souls, and certainly I think the feedback you've provided we'll take to heart. And thank you again for trusting us with this process of BBC. Thanks. Closed, yeah?